Welcome to the podcast of the impossible. I'm Peter Wood, and my guest today went from a lawyer to a magician to a judge. It all seems fine to me. Please welcome my buddy, Jobeth Bowers. Hello. That's actually not accurate. It's not like you left any of those things. You're all still doing all of them concurrently, maybe even more so now as the Judge Mentalist, right?
It's true. Although, from a legal standpoint, it's a stage name, the Judge. I am not legally a judge.
It's good.
I will not. It is not a desired outcome to my career. However, I will say that being an active practitioner, and what I dare say a prominent practitioner, because I don't like giving myself any sort of credence like that, but I will because of the where I'm going with this. As small as the town and the county that I'm in is, I would not rule it out that at some point in time in my life I am being tapped for the bench, because the selections, the pond has only got so many fish in here.
Sure.
So I'm not saying no. It's certainly not something that I'm aiming for, but
well, and so folks know, so you are in Elkton, Maryland,
yes.
which is, and it's funny, I've described Elkton to folks as like, it is in the middle of nowhere, but also close to multiple, like you are an hour or less from Baltimore, Maryland, from Lancaster, PA, and from Wilmington, Delaware. And so the fact that you're in the sort of, right, in Philadelphia. Yeah, absolutely. So the fact that you're sort of in anyone picturing it on a map, it's like the top right corner of the state of Maryland. And so it's an interesting, it's a surprisingly central spot, I guess, has been my experience.
You could draw a line between Baltimore and Philadelphia, and then bisect that line, you'd be in Elkton.
Right. Yeah.
And my distance to drive without, obviously, traffic or somebody overturning an 18-wheeler to the Philadelphia airport and the Baltimore airport is almost the same.
Wow. Nice. Okay.
So
that's great.
It takes me twice as long to book trips because I have to check both airports.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Which has got better times, which has got direct flights, which is whatever,
right?
Which has got better prices, et cetera, et cetera. So
at least you have options. Yeah.
It is, yes.
Well, and
only a couple hours from New York.
Yeah, right. I mean, yeah, the fact that I'm still a decent, so being in sort of central Maryland, it still is a 3.5, 4 hour to New York. But yeah, the fact that you're that much closer, and it gives you a lot of, and I'm sure, I know you've seen magic. We talked on an earlier episode about it in Las Vegas, but I know, you get a chance to see a good amount of magic, in the Philly area as well as on up into New York. Are there any sort of standout shows either for good or for bad? You don't have to like name names, but I'm always curious to know if there was something that was either inspiring because it was great, or there was something inspiring because it was below average and you kind of felt like, oh yeah, I can do that,
I will say that I have definitely seen some of those latter moments. Especially on television recently. I try not to go. Let's put it this way. I usually will know of a performer that I'm going to see before I go see them. Whether I've seen them before or not,
okay,
I will at least know, oh, so-and-so is going to be here, or so-and-so is going to be there. I have to make the trek.
Right.
And sometimes that's for good and sometimes that's for bad. I will say that there have been performers performing within a few hours of me that I was like, I've met that person before. I've gotten a bad vibe from that person in one setting, but haven't seen them on stage.
Right.
Know that they are a technically skilled performer.
Yeah.
And before I approach them about any interest in maybe doing a show here in Elkton, because we book the Elkton Magic shows, let me go see them.
Right.
So I have done fact-finding missions like that, and that has come with a mixed bag.
Right.
And it's the other thing is, and this is a good angle to kind of chat about on here is really the genesis and the motivation of the Elkton Magic Project.
Yeah, yeah.
Being in the middle of nowhere, as you described it very much is, my access to seeing live magic is very limited, and sometimes it would just be easier for me to book a flight and a room and go to Vegas and just like I have had 4-day trips to Vegas where I've seen 9 magic shows
Nice. Yeah. Yeah.
because that's the goal and that's what I went to do. And just, there are enough performers like Banachek and Matt King who have daytime shows
Mhm.
that allow you to do those and then go see a Piff. Or, I mean, you could do Mac King, Piff the Magic Dragon, and Penn and Teller
Yeah.
all in the same day if you wanted to. You are hoping you don't catch traffic between Piff and
Yeah.
Penn and Teller.
Yeah. Sure.
You can do it.
Yep.
And you could swap out Mac for Banachek because their shows are at 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock, but on totally different ends of the world.
Right. Right.
But you could do a Banachek and then I don't know. The list is endless, and there's so
Yeah.
many great shows. But that's all fine and good for me. But I have kids that at the time of this recording are 11 and 15.
Okay.
So the 15-year-old is at the point where I could take her to Vegas and see magic shows, and we've done that.
Right.
But it's still a tough stretch for the Penn and Teller show, which starts at 9 Vegas time, which is midnight here.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
The only time my son is actually the only of the two that's seen Penn and Teller, and that's because they came to Atlantic City and I got tickets right away.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
The whole drive to just hop on a plane and go to Vegas really started with me a few years ago, where by the time I found out that Penn and Teller were going to be in Atlantic City, it was all reseller tickets that were like, I'm looking at the price on these. I'm
Oh.
like, dude, I could book a flight, a hotel, and then I could buy front row tickets
Right.
Rio and
Yeah.
spend less money. So I did.
There you go. Because it was
But
cost effective. Sure, that's a good way to rationalize it.
But if I go out and I vet the performers that I want and I
Mhm.
bring them to my backyard, my
Right.
kids get to see them, and my kids get to see them at a reasonable time,
Right.
and I get to see them, and so we by the time this airs, we will probably have announced new shows because the Elkton Magic venue is moving.
Right. Right.
We had linked up with a community theater. We did shows that ran between November of 21 and May of 22, basically on a monthly basis, with the exception of that December because there was some holiday stuff in the theater going on.
Uh-huh.
Everything was great. Like a lot of the shows sold out. Many of them came very close to capacity.
Mhm.
We had the great Peter Wood was there for 2 nights in February.
It was a lot of fun. Yeah.
And I will tell you that the vast majority of the performers that we had there, I have had numerous people say, "Hey, when are you bringing this person, that person, or the other back?"
Yeah.
So
Nice.
as things solidify, and in this kind of pivot move of the theater being sold, the building being sold, and the theater needing to relocate,
Mhm.
I have since started reaching out to other venues. So this Elkton Magic is an idea; it's not a place,
Right.
and it just exists in a geographical area now, and not a single location. So there will
Cool.
be multiple venues that are springing up with sponsored Elkton Magic events
Nice.
starting relatively soon. But everybody that we've had on that stage, and this has not been a qualifier, but it has been a kind of a common thread.
Mhm.
They've either been on Fool Us, Masters of Illusion, America's Got Talent. Actually, you know what? That's not true. Mario the Maker Magician, I don't believe has been on any of those shows.
Yeah, I mean, but plenty of fantastic accolades, though. I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
like, awesome quote, like David Blaine says, "You're my favorite magician," or something. Like, and YouTube. I mean, viral video famous. So
it's
yeah,
crazy. The stuff that he does is fantastic,
yeah,
and I will tell you something that I could say about him that I don't know that I could say about everybody is that in a family friendly performance, I would say that if you have kids, you have to go see his show if you have the opportunity.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
you don't have kids, you probably still should and will absolutely love and be entertained with his show. It is not just for kids.
Right.
There are so many kids performers out there that are legitimately like just for kids, and they'll do birthday parties or otherwise, and then there'll be the parents in the background with their arms crossed.
Right.
Not at Mario's show.
Right.
Mario just touches the entire audience, no matter where they are and who they are and what age they are.
Yeah.
So if you ever see Mario the Maker out there and think, "Oh, this is just for kids," think again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go see it. It's fantastic. So,
No, yeah, we were. I mean, I had seen him. Well, it's crazy. My daughter and I went to see him. He came to a venue in Baltimore, and it was the weekend before the world shut down. And it was just such a crazy. Like even at that show, there were already sort of rumors and murmurings about something going on in China. And I remember that my daughter had a little bit of a stuffy nose, and I was really worried about how that was going to be perceived, because all of a sudden there's this thing that everyone has been talking about now, and so I don't think it was COVID, and I don't think that she spread it throughout Baltimore in the United States. It's possible, I don't know, but that was I distinctly remember that show and how great Mario was and how much my daughter loved it and I loved it, and a lot of times it was the same. It was the same stuff that we were loving. Like, so, I'm definitely guilty in my family shows of sort of putting you've got your two layers in there. You have the stuff that kids pick up on and the stuff that adults pick up on, and there's overlap for sure. But I was really impressed with Mario's, how it really is right down the middle. Like, you're gonna love it as an adult, and you're also gonna love it as a kid. It's not just loving it as an adult because you're watching kids enjoy it, if that makes sense,
absolutely. And he just, I could sit here. We could do like 3 podcast episodes talking about
Yeah.
how great Mario is and how amazingly he camouflages so much classic magic in that show,
Yeah.
that even as a magician, he's probably one of the best at giving magicians the ability to just sit there and take it all in and stop analyzing methods, because we all do it. Any
Yeah.
magicians that are listening, you know what I'm talking about, where you're sitting there being like, "Oh, how's this done? How's that?" You could his show is just one where you can unwind and just take it in,
Yeah.
enjoy
Yeah.
it, and you almost forget that you're at a magic show,
Sure.
though you're getting hit with effects throughout,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's
No,
it's on.
and I mean, it's also sort of part, Tony Robbins' motivational speech. Like, that was what, so, my, when he came to Elkton, my wife and daughter and I all came and wanted to see him. And that was my wife's, takeaway. She was like, that was just like, I want every kid to see that show because of how inspiring and empowering it is. And that was definitely one of the ones where, like, as much as I love it, it's also like, wow, can I ever be at that level of, like, putting that kind of a message into the show and not having it feel like, I've never really tried to do a show with a message, just because because I've seen so many guys do it poorly, so many performers out there, it's just a thin veneer of a message, and it's not really down to the core of the show. And you can tell that Mario cares about
deep,
the
yeah.
message,
It's deep. It is not
Yeah.
an orchestrated, fabricated hooey.
Yep.
Where
Yeah.
it's like, oh, and I'm going to throw this in, by the way,
Right.
be a great person, and I'm not gonna repeat his message. I'll let you see that in the show.
Yeah.
But like, it's so good.
Yeah.
It's such a, it just exists and exudes from every piece of that show that he does.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah. And So I love, just in a larger sense, what you're doing in Elkton. The sort of it's a really cool being able to bring in a variety of performers from all over the place. My experience with you there has kind of you feel like the mayor of Elkton. Like it seems, and I'm sure that's a small town thing where like it seems like everybody knows you, and it is almost like this fun community thing you're doing. Like, hey, town, gather around. I've brought in this magician who I think is cool and I think you'll enjoy as well. And it's a really, like, you definitely get the sense of community, and you also get the sense of, the audience members are interacting with each other on a regular basis outside of that theater.
Yeah.
And you can totally feel that vibe. It's almost like when I do with a family reunion, or sometimes in like a corporate show environment, where these are people who already spend so much time with each other that there are going to be little inside jokes and references. And there's a comfort and familiarity with people interacting with one another that you just never get at a normal show where a bunch of strangers all show up in a room at the same time,
And we have some of those things. Some of those things in the short run of shows that we've done
Uh-huh.
have emerged, and there that we had. So I think it was before you. We had Siegfried Tieber in,
Mhm.
and he's he's definitely a character and has a really fun performance. His show is great. It's super smart, but it's not like over anybody's head at the same
Mhm.
time. And there was a piece where if you saw him in his second full-less appearance, he memorizes like 200 and some decks of cards, one every day of the pandemic.
Right.
He has a shortened version that has about 3 or 4 months worth of cards that he brings on the road with him.
Cool.
And part of that routine is having somebody name a card and having somebody else name a number 1 through 52, and him being able to figure out that that card was in that position on that day, grab the box, and then show.
Right. Nice. Yeah.
So he does this in one of the performances, and it always starts with, "Hey, the what the playing cards are, right? Okay, great. Pick one." And the lady goes, "The 12 of diamonds." And
Nice.
there's this kind of like awkward pause. He ran with this so perfectly. He's like, I'm assuming that you mean the queen of diamonds, because that's basically where it lines up, and then went forward with it.
Right.
The very next day, he picks a kid to ask that question to. So it breaks down the selection a little bit more. Okay, there's, red or black, and just kind of runs through everything.
Right.
And when he gets to and pick a value of a card, no connection between these people. Nobody, it was literally like a behind the scenes. That was really funny that happened last night sort of thing.
Yeah.
The kid had selected diamonds, and it was, and for me in the back of the room sitting there, I'm like, oh God, this car is going to go off is this car going to go off the cliff again?
Right.
The kid said 12. And there were, like, my wife was
Amazing.
there for the whole weekend, so had seen all the shows.
Oh, that's great.
The guy that runs the theater, a handful of people had been to the previous night's show, and there was this weird, like, small vein of laughter that nobody else was it was like at a different level.
Sure.
Because everybody was laughing at this kid selecting 12,
Uh-huh.
but not the same way that a handful of us were.
Right.
Like
Right.
Siegfried. And that is a thing that has not died.
That's funny.
The 12 of Diamonds, the brewery that's up the street from the theater, there was a time where they made a beer that they called the 12 of Diamonds.
Oh, that's funny.
Because the lady that did this is a regular at the small brewery.
Okay.
Can I run off camera real quick? I
Sure.
need to show something.
Yeah. Yeah. This is exciting. All right. But I'm going to narrate it while. Okay. So for our listener at home, Jobeth has left the roll. Okay. You're back. I was just doing the describing what you're doing, but you're back. So it's too fast.
So, I linked up with this company at Magic Live that's over in the UK that makes playing cards and illustrates playing cards. And
nice.
Like, oh, can we do this? Now, I don't have one of the cards to show you, but I have a printout of the 12 of
Nice.
diamonds proof.
So we
I
have,
had I
that's
had
great.
these made, and I just don't have them here to show, but there I have actual playing cards that have bicycle backs on them
Oh, great.
that look like this. And I will tell you that when I went and did what I did a tamed down version of Danny Day Ortiz's The Ritual
Okay.
for her, where at the end her card was revealed as this.
Uh-huh.
She lost her absolute mind.
That's fantastic.
And just, like, and I'm like, here, it's for you, it's a gift. It was a great moment. It was a moment that literally, I mean, the time frame of this reveal that happened in January.
Right.
Magic Live was in May, which is when I linked up with the vendor. I think it was about 2 months ago that I finally did the reveal. So like September or October. So this
Yeah.
is like one of those, like, I'm holding this and I've got to find the right time to do.
Oh yeah, you don't want to mess that up for
And,
sure. Yeah.
and at first I was going to do it as a card to ceiling sort of thing. And then I
Yeah.
was there one night and she was there and I was like, you know what, this is the time. I'm going to do just this chaotic sort of random, let's shuffle these cards. And, and then all of a sudden what shows up on top is, wait, what is this card? Oh, it's the 12 of diamonds.
Yeah.
And she looks at me at first, because if your viewers may not know her, but that's not just the queen.
Up a little
This
higher.
Yeah, this is an illustration of the lady.
Right. And for our audio only listeners, it looks like a queen of diamonds, but the face is a version of the lady who said that, and then where the Q should be in the corner, there's a 12. It looks perfect.
Yeah, and it's not like a cutty pasty thing. They
Yeah.
printed these cards.
That's great.
And it's one of the favorite things that I've ever done. And now I utilize this company because every so often, and I would love to do more of these, even though they're not congruent with my stage act at all. But to do weddings,
Mm.
I was invited to, but not hired because I hadn't really put myself out here to do it. A friend's wedding a couple of months ago, and I did a double-ended card where one end of it was the groom
Mm.
and the king in a king of hearts. The other end was the bride and the queen of hearts.
Right.
And then I did some sort of little, let's find this card. Is that your card? No, it's not your card. Are you sure it's not your card? Why don't you look close?
Right. That's
Kind of one of
great.
those like magician in trouble sort of things, but then let's look close. It wasn't even really a trick.
Yeah.
Like it was like for that, I had the card that I wanted to reveal on the very top.
Mhm.
And I was like, here, fanned a normal deck of cards, and I had him pick a card, take a look, put it back in. You pick a card, take a look, put it back in.
Right.
I'm going to make both of those cards come to the top and merge into one card. And then it wasn't that card; it was the gift.
Yeah. Right.
So there was no move, there was no magic. I'm not revealing anything here because it
Yeah.
wasn't a magic trick.
Sure.
It was just like, here, are you sure this isn't your card?
Right.
And it just, holy shit, what is this?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that's also an impossible object. I mean, like that is a thing that they will talk about and keep for years, which is really, really cool. You know?
Just little things like that make me want to do more weddings. Not even just
Yeah.
with people that I know, but just to be like, okay, cool. Because if you're getting booked for the planning time and the lead time on the wedding is so far out.
Yeah.
So the ability for me to troll them on Facebook or get photos of them now and whatever, and then
Yeah.
send them off and get the illustrations done. It's fantastic. It's a lot of fun.
That's cool. And definitely, yeah, I think something that can separate you from other performers, if you're willing to go that extra mile and have those sort of bits of customization in there is going to be really awesome. So, no, I like it. And I appreciate, again, you're taking the time to hang out with me here today.
Absolutely, anytime.
It was great. And I'm sure we'll do it again. So just a quick recap, elktonmagic.com. That's going to be the place to go find, as you're bringing other performers into the area, then folks can do that. But more specifically for you, if anyone wants to check out more of what you're up to, you can go to thealmostpsychic.com. And then on social media, it's psychic Ish. So psychic, Psychic, and then Ish, ISH. That's your handle on the socials. Jobeth Bowers, the Judge Mentalist, which I still am just really, really loving. That's awesome. So thank you for hanging out here. And that's going to do it for this episode of the podcast of The Impossible. But for my public shows and social media and special projects, you can head on over to oftheimpossible.com. I'm Peter Wood. Thanks.